How's it going? My name is Greg from the band Terriginous, and I am in the process of teaching you all of Dream Theater's first record, When Dream and Day Unite. So the next song we're going to do is track 4, The Killing Hand. And if you like these videos, please subscribe. More lessons should be coming your way, as well as the rest of the record. And please check out my band Terriginous. If you like prog metal, you should be a fan of it. All right, so The Killing Hand, without further ado. So on the record, the intro is no less than 3 different classical guitars. As I said in the previous videos, I did all these transcriptions to be played as one guitar, but on this one I did decide to include both parts. So we'll talk about that briefly. We'll go over it. So the intro, the melody guitar is what John Petrucci plays live. Pretty straightforward D minor thing, all nicely in that pocket. On the record, after that, a second guitar kicks in. And you can tell it's 2 guitars just by the sound, the way that they're plucked. But live, Petrucci plays both parts at the same time. And it's just parallel thirds for the most part. Fourth at the end, and then D minor add 9 arpeggio. But so that's the entire intro for the lead guitar, but I might as well show you the rhythm guitar as well. It's a pretty part. At their performance in 2004 where they played this whole record, Jordan Rudess is playing this on the keyboard. But so we start with and this, I'm fairly certain, is played with fingers on the record. It's got that nice dull sound, which is really a nice sound on classical guitar. I know classical guitar purists, most of you play with your nails, which is awesome, fantastic. I actually like that sound of nylon strings with fingertips better. But anyway, here it is on electric guitar. So you have D minor add 9 first. And one thing you'll notice if you're not very experienced in finger picking right hand, we generally try to assign one finger to one string when we're doing arpeggiated bits like this, but we run into a problem. Generally, we don't use pinky, and so we got 6 strings on the guitar. So we got 4 fingers that we're using and 6 strings to be able to play. So sometimes you'll see it phrased that way. But here, there's 5 and 6 strings being played in every one. There's a bunch of different solutions for that. The way that I like to do it is actually get index finger to do a little extra. One of the general rules in classical guitar is you want to try not to use the same finger twice in a row, other than thumb. Like when you're playing bass lines, you can use thumb to do a lot of articulated bass stuff. Now there's a couple ways we could do this. You could have thumb play 2 strings. That's a pretty fine way to do it, but one of the ways I like to do it is I like to kind of sneak my index finger in for the first string and keep my fingers assigned to all the other strings. So that's kind of cool to me because I don't have to move my hand at all. Just index finger just takes this little easy travel over to first string and then we're good. So we've got D minor add 9. C sus2, and then A minor. So this one I would probably use my thumb twice because this allows me to play the last 4 notes nice and evenly. And then we're returning to not D minor add 9 this time with the open E, just a good easy D minor bar chord. And then in B flat add 9, we saw this chord in the chorus to Fortune and Lies. So, and again, I'm going to use my thumb twice here because that makes it easier for my right hand. We have, excuse me, B flat add 9 and C add 9, just the same shape moved up. And then that figure repeats. and just ends on a D minor. And that'll sound like something's missing because the lead, at least in my ears, really takes over there with that final melody. Right, so there's our intro, and then the entire band enters. So also a key change here, we're going to be in G minor for a bunch of the song. Sometimes, so measure 18, if you see a note in parentheses, sometimes it's a note that's hit that I don't believe is intentional, because he's absolutely barring 3rd fret to get part of this riff. And I think he's just going for the low G, but he nicks that C a little bit too. And the first part of that riff, as I said, everything's barred on the third fret, and he's getting an F power chord, but now this one, I don't know if it's intentional. I like it. It sounds pretty cool. So I'm adding that, I added the note on the B string, the D, to give us like an F power chord plus the 6th. If you listen closely, it's in there just about every time. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or it may have been a happy accident. Like he's going for that power chord and he hears that every time. He goes, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." And then following up on that second half, the E flat chord, E flat 6 sus2, if we had to give it a name, because we got the sus2 on the first string and the 6 right here. And on this line, on the band enters line, letter C, you'll notice I have 2 different sections. The second section, the only difference is he's hitting that low G twice, palm muted, instead of only hitting it once. Because that first time, the whole band does a big hit with that. So the 2nd through 4th time, pretty straightforward what's going on there. Then the consistent beat starts after doing 4 of those, and we're really doing the same riff, just with a little more to it and a chord change at the end. So. Now here, it's essential for going into that first ending, you don't just grab the B flat chord, grab the B flat sus2 all at once. So you can get those arpeggiated notes on top. So here is the band starts riff. That, of course, was the second ending, where you just wait on the B flat sus2, and then you have a couple of arpeggios. Now, this little 3/4 measure with the 2 sus2 arpeggios happens a bunch of times in the song. This is the thing that I'm most likely to forget, because they're usually a little bit different. So here it's C sus2 to B flat. And then our good friend, the G5 power chord, the like open G5 that Petrucci loves so much. And whenever this measure comes by, we'll look at how it's a little different. Bit of drum fills while we hold that, and then 17th fret. Held that for a while. These strings could be a little newer. So then we're on verse 1. Verse 1 is a unison between the keyboard and guitar. Guitar is just playing these nice little lines that outline the chord progression really nicely. So first, it's a little G minor scale thing, or G minor add 9 if you wanted to give these 4 notes a name. I like playing this run with, I don't often do this. I'm usually a 1 finger to 1 fret guy if I don't have to stretch. But here I like using middle and ring, because ring finger I find easier to get that bar and do it cleanly. Notice I'm also not letting those notes of the bar ring over. There's a lot of subtle ways to do this. The way that I do it is differently if I'm going from fatter to skinnier than if I'm going skinnier to fattier, or if I'm going from lower to higher, higher to lower. I'm always talking sound, by the way. So if I need to hit 3rd string 15th, B flat to D on the B string, I'm actually killing the G string, the 3rd string, with my thumb as I pick the B string. Now if I'm going in the other direction, let's say I had to hit the D on the B string before the G string, I'd actually just roll my finger off. While I don't have to roll my pinky here because we are going from lower to higher, it's barring with my pinky is something I don't like to do if I don't have to. Then it's a little bit based off of an F chord. The next series of notes is still based off of G minor to my ears. I haven't really analyzed what's going on in the keys, because I think there's a pad holding out chords. But to my ears, it sounds like G minor, but just with the fifth on the bottom, second inversion. Then that one low note changes to give us the A flat chord. And then we're back to this deal on F here. And similar barring stuff happening. Now I'm using my index finger, much easier, but I'm also killing the lower 10, the F here with my thumb of my right hand. And overall, you get a nice clean sound, no notes ringing over each other. This is done, of course, with clean guitars, so if they are ringing over each other, it's not the end of the world, but I like it to be nice and crispy clean like that. After we repeat that part twice, then we get to letter F. This is still clean guitar, and apologize, I copped out a little bit here because I wrote with picking variations, because on the record, he is hitting like sort of randomly hitting eighth notes instead of 16th notes in spots. So I'm just saying that, like I wrote the first example here of two of the notes as eighth notes. But live, he actually picks every single one as a 16th note, at least in that 2004 performance. Now watch out on the record, the fifth time he changes the melody a little bit, and then goes back to the normal one. Then you get to what I'm calling verse 2. Remember is the sacrifice. So, and verse 2 is the exact same thing. Live in 2004, he does keep sneaking that different measure. That would be, in our transcription, that's measure 49, if you're following along with us. So live, he does sneak in measure 49 in a bunch of places, but I didn't write it that way because the record, he is now just all 16th notes throughout, and with distortion, of course, and palm mute. So again, what I'm probably going to go over in every video slightly, turn your pick angle a little bit. I explained it better in the previous videos in order to do these 2 notes per string deals and really nicely and cleanly, and to move from one string to the next. And another word about alternate picking. So depending how fast something is or slow it is, if it's slow enough, I may put a little bounce in my picking. And I used to think this was bad, but then I realized that when I do put that bounce in, that actually helps me keep time really good. It helps me keep time, and I end up not going too fast because the bounce is sort of like that extra movement. And then as you feel it, if the riff is faster and faster, you don't have time to do the bounce, and if you do it without, good riff to practice this on. Now in terms of left-hand stuff here, I like using my ring finger in the middle. If you turn your hand slightly and you hold it a little more like this, within reason, still decent guitar technique, you may find you like to use middle finger better in that middle. That's cool too. The big thing here is the pinky bar. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I don't like doing it, but there's no other way around it here. So after you've done that a certain amount of times, 7 times, the last time changes the last note. Now, why does he change the last note? Because it sets him up for that sus2 lick again. This one, now I have to look back at my own transcription. This one actually is the same as the last one. So it's only the third one that I think is different. C sus2 to B flat sus2. And then this is the crossing over part, and we are back. Oh, I called it this again. my transcriptions could be a little more my descriptions could be a little more flowery. But we're back on this riff exactly the way it happened when the band ends. Now we're doing the different sus2s. I knew it was coming. This one is A flat to B flat. Just a simple part of all power chords. As I will always mention, could be 2-note power chord. These are long enough where I like the 3-note power chords. Might as well hit that extra note. Halfway through, so we're actually playing the same power chords twice, but halfway through he jumps down the octave. So we've got G, F, G, E flat, F, and then back down to G. F. You'll notice I'm putting the E flat and the F on these strings now because that's going to lead nicely into the riff for verse 3 and 4. And again, when you see vibrato in a chord, this is definitely a gentler vibrato, so I purposely didn't use the wide vibrato symbol. Petrucci will usually do it. You know, it's a pretty subtle vibrato on these chords. So that leads us into verse 3 and 4. This actually, I keep mentioning the darkness of the guitar tone on this record. It can be a little hard to hear that he's hitting 2 notes when he hits the higher octave of G. So that higher note gets a little lost in the mix, but some good live footage, you can see he's hitting both. Pretty straightforward there, just the octave and the fifth. And then this nice little kind of counter melody to that, to the vocal line. Write down the C minor scale actually there, or G Phrygian. Kind of like this whole part is really leading into C minor. That last part, the first ending there's a harmony guitar on the record. I'm going with the lower guitar, which is what Petrucci plays live. For that run in the beginning, just watch out because it starts with 30-second notes at the end of the first line of verse 3 and 4. That, by the way, does screw up your alternate picking. You could, one alternative is it's slow enough where you could downstroke some of these 16th notes, but I'll just correct the picking at the beginning of the next measure. You end up doing 2 downs in a row, but it's not crazy fast. So that, of course, repeats. I'll do the second line into the second ending. And after your B flat power chord, then an E flat. Now, I think he's hitting a 2-note power chord, but that low note might be ringing out from the previous chord. He may have barred it. And then definitely the reinforced D power chord. This is He is risen. And then you have this neat rising part. So another interesting thing live, John Petrucci starts this run right away. Now on the record, this is harmonized, but I don't believe it's harmonized live. So he's kind of free to start it when he wants to, but on the record, this absolutely does not start in beat 1. It starts on the upbeat of 1. And now we're dealing with 30-second notes. So, of course, looking at the notes themselves is really daunting, but it's just a simple pattern. So it's a little bit trickiness to the pattern, but it's fairly straightforward. You need a pretty good stretch for this, though. So we're going... Now, usually I'll hit this G power chord with my middle finger, but I'm absolutely hitting it with my index finger because that sets me up for the run on the upbeat of 1. And as I've said before, I'm trying to make this very accurate to the record, not necessarily how they've made little changes here and there. So here's the deal with the run. it's the same finger shape over and over again. It's all 4 fingers, but it's whole step, half step, whole step. And then move that over a string. In the first instance, that's just diatonic G minor. Of course, that meaning that note is getting doubled as well, but so I just got to look how it moves. I actually recently, just before I did this video, I corrected it because I realized I had it a little funny. So, all right, so you play diatonic G minor by doing it here. Then you move up 2 frets and start it from the A string. If you're being a stickler for details, this would actually make it G Dorian instead of G minor. This is also harmonized a 5th up, I believe, on the record. We're doing the low part because that is what Petrucci plays live, even though the timing is like it is on the record. So we moved up 2 frets, started on the A string, but now we're going to do it 3 times on the A string. So far we've got starting from the E string, do it twice, then starting from the A string, do it 3 times. That's how I'm filing it away in my brain. Since it's always the same finger position, I can kind of do like mental shortcuts to know what I need to do. After we've done those 3, then we go back to the D string. So we're going back 1 string and starting it yet again. And again, still the same exact shape. And this time we're going to do it 4 times. However, watch out because the stupid tuning of the guitar means we have to move up 1 fret to keep the same idea. Then from 8th fret. So far we've got from the E string twice, from the A string 3 times, and then from the D string 4 times. And then to round that out, we are going to move up 2 frets and from the B string. And if you've done this right, you'll actually end in an upstroke, which does feel a little unnatural. Oh. Definitely a whammy bar vibrato at the end of that as well. So, so here's the whole run. I'll do it a little slow. Now, in time, remember, this does not start on beat 1. This starts on the upbeat of 1. So if I have to start something on upbeat of 1, if there's a rest, I try to really like make a very conscious downbeat, bop my head, tap my foot, do something to keep my timing honest. Here we're actually hitting the chord if we want to be complete. So again, a pretty straightforward lick. If you don't feel like you can make that stretch, just try it slowly. Make sure you're warmed up before you try it too. Warming up is really important. I should do separate videos on warm-ups, but a million guitar players have done that, probably better than what I would do too. I have my particular pet ones I like to do for picking that. Now that I'm talking about it, I probably will. But that's neither here nor there. We're on the killing hand, right? So after that epic run, just 2 power chords. Again, I'm placing the E flat and the F down here so I can return back to this. And then this neat little tapping bit. There's some good live footage to show you that definitely Petrucci's using his right hand for this. This is going to be a little chaotic, but I'm using my left hand to stop all the other strings. This is a little tricky because I'm getting my thumb all the way to D string and just getting the other ones. But this way, my right hand, which definitely does not have the skill of my left hand, can be a little more like kind of... I don't have to worry about getting too much other junk ringing. On the record, this might sound wrong to you if you know the record really well. The bass is really loud here. They really jacked up the bass. He does a harmony of this. I think he does taps like an octave and a third lower. Excuse me. But that leads us back. Dies al coda, if you know your musical direction. Now we are jumping back to the segno, the sign, which is verse 3 and 4. Now, of course, verse 4. Same stuff. That's where our 2 coda is. And this is almost identical to what happened before. There's a different drum fill. But that's the guitar part. These are actually a little rhythmically clashy because the drum fill is a triplet and the guitar is just a noise on the downbeat of 4 and an upstroke on the The E, sorry. For E. Same two power chords from before. Is it all over? And then we got a little like short lead here. In Yuchi Jam, I talked about finding the artificial harmonic. On this guitar, this artificial harmonic is right to the inside of here. So I'm going to plan ahead, try to make sure that I hit that. But pretty straightforward melodic line here. You'll notice the first part bend is a whole step, then a step and a half, and then down. So that makes this nice little melody just by playing a note on one fret. Then we are to verse 5 and 6. This is a cool kind of power metal-y part. So we're starting off with a C power chord, and we're definitely in C minor here. Just going between a C and the minor 6 here, which, if you're being real theory about it, is like an A flat major in first inversion. Then, this baffled me at first because I hear him slide but then playing the same note. So I said, why would he slide and play the same note on a different string? Then knowing the rest of the riff, it makes sense. So after he's power metaling on the C power chord here, he hits C sus2, reinforced F5 power chord, and then E flat power chord, B flat in first inversion, never tune in your instructional videos. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to name every chord here. And again, we get one of those licks where we're playing 2 notes per string. And the open D's here really just to serve to return his hand. It's really hard to play this part out of context, so here it all is together. First line of verse 5 and 6. Then the second line of verse 5 and 6. Now, Charlie hasn't started singing yet, so this is just the lead into it. The drums do something really weird where Portnoy is like flipping where the accents are instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like on 1 and 3 or something really strange that I always try to ignore the drums here is what I'm saying. If you just keep a nice steady beat, you should be able to keep along with this, because what he's doing really makes this sound more complicated than it is, because it's just the same thing again, but in the second half there's no breaks, just constant 16ths. Then the singing starts, and you're going to do that whole thing. So let me play you that whole verse 5. After verse 5, you get this neat little fill. Now, I wrote in, so we are on measure 102 if you're following along with the transcription. I wrote in some slides. Those slides are not audible, but I wrote them in so you know where to move your hand, so it makes a lot of sense. So the first part, the first measure plus 1/8 note is all neatly in third position. Well, first measure and 2/8 notes. Then, when you move up, neatly in 5 position, and then slide down. And of course, watch for the triplets at the end. 4 beats, roughly rest. Then you go to verse 6, which is exactly what we did before, so I'm not going to go over that again. It's exactly as verse 5. That is, if you're following musical direction, DSS to the double sign, because we already had an S earlier, to double coda. So pretty simple, just like DSL coda, but both ideas are doubled because it's the second instance that we're seeing that. I also like to keep these transcriptions as short as possible. If I don't do a lot of repeats, these could easily turn into 20 pages. So then we are on what I'm calling the Neoclassical Bit. If you've been following along and you're trying to play this whole record till now, you're probably pretty good at this by now, because as you know, John Petrucci loves to do these 2-note per string bits. So for this, it's you got to be a little strategic about what fingers you use. It's all muted, so any barring isn't going to make a difference. You don't have to worry about things ringing over. So, and what we have here is like a little C minor lick with a rising bass note here, right? Nothing real rocket sciencey here. The only thing that I'm doing is when you get to the third note, I'm not stretching and using my middle finger on this A natural. I'm using ring finger and then just having pinky do a little extra. It's slow enough for the left hand. All the difficulty is in the right hand here. And then you get to this arpeggiated part. And for this part, I'm pretty sure he's doing pull-offs here with just a little bit of palm mute, and he's still reliably alternate picking. Sometimes when I do these licks, I'll do it Marty Friedman style. If you can keep your timing, if you can keep your timing strict doing this, it's actually a little easier. So Marty Friedman style. Like that is where you upstroke, pull off, and then do 2 downs in a row. It's a lot more economical, but you do have to be careful that you don't rush something when you're doing the 2 downs in a row. Doing an alternate pick means you're going to go down, pull off, down, up. The pull off again gives you time to reset. I don't think he's picking every single note here, but again, he's got a little bit of palm mute. And then now the chord progression here, C minor. Then by just raising that one note, you're on A flat. By raising it again, we can think of it as A minor 7 flat 5 if you really need to give it a name. And then we're moving up to a B flat chord, and then a G major. And G major is your 5 chord, which of course is going to land us right back to our 1 chord in C minor. But then we are on the part that I'm saying keys join, or the keyboard unison. So the first, this lick is one of the trickier ones on the record. It's pretty fast, but not brutally fast yet. You just got to be, I like to be really strict about alternate picking on something like this, because then I know my timing is going to be nice and honest. So, you're in C minor, and we're just using mostly like the shreddy pattern of C minor. The way that I usually teach it is this is the 7th pattern of C minor. I teach all the patterns, just it's kind of arbitrary, but I teach all the patterns like the first one uses pointer finger on the root, second one uses pointer finger on the second note of the scale, and so forth till you get the 7th. So like we've said with a lot of different solos on this record so far, if you know where the scale's coming from, then you're not just staring at meaningless tab notes, you can orient yourself and know really what's going on. So this entire keyboard unison is played right here. So again, you just got to be strict and very careful with the pick. I'll just do it slow for you. Eventually, I'm probably going to do a playthrough of the whole record where I'll show it off, but this is for instructional purposes. Think of those 2 measures as kind of like the starting point, because the pattern gets a little different there. So far, it's just been down 4 notes, up, what is it, up 5 notes, so you can just kind of keep doing the same thing, or up 6 notes. Once you get there, then you're on a slightly more difficult pattern for us guitar players, because it's just not quite super pick and hand friendly, but not impossible. So I forgot, when I get to the end of that, I modify the fingering a little bit, but for the most part, I'm doing one finger to one fret. Also, in the beginning of that last run, I was using my ring finger, and remember, I've said this in the other videos as well, when you have these whole step shapes, you can use either middle finger or ring finger in the middle. If you're like me and you have your hand very parallel, ring finger might work better. If you have a little bit of a slant to your hand, middle finger might work better on that. Sometimes I do the other depending on what the lick calls for. But right on measure 115. So when I'm nearing the end, pinky should land on the B flat, 11th fret of the 2nd string, but I'm using ring finger because that sets me up to do the last 4 notes. If I've used pinky, then I have to warp pinky from here to here, and that's not going to be clean. And then this way, when I do the last lick, I'm also using my ring finger again because that's going to set me up for what comes next. So now if you're doing a record and you're punching this stuff, you can get away without doing that. But if you're going to perform this, you're going to do it for real, yeah, you want to make those nice little adjustments to help you get to the next part quickly and cleanly. The next part is where things get a little bit hairy. On the record, it's very hard to hear the guitar here. And it's so fast that it's not something that's perfectly played, but the keyboard part is nice and perfect. So I'm going a little bit off assumption here, but I think it's just still harmonized a third above the keyboard part, or somewhat a third, somewhat a fifth, because you see keeping the same chord shape. So the keyboard part here is, which is a C minor add 9. So the guitar part, I have C minor add 11. Why add 11? Because when the keyboard is hitting the 9, or the D in this case, the guitar is hitting the third above, the F. So that makes musical sense. And we're just sweeping away here. This is very, very fast. This is a tricky thing to get up to speed, but with a little practice you can do it. There's a little bit of difference in how you can pick this. When I sweep, sometimes when I sweep, I pick every single note. That's what it sounds like to me on the record, because you can really hear like the pick sound of the guitar more than anything else. But you could start this with a pull-off. That might make your life a little easier. I think I started pulling off and then didn't do it afterwards. But the big difference here in how some people would play it is when they hit the lowest note of this shape. I use an upstroke because I was going in that direction, and then I just turn around and go back to the next string. This is too fast for me to switch before I hit that note, but some people would do like, and start that with a downstroke. I can't do that as fast and as reliably, but the advantage to doing it that way, if I'm playing an arpeggio that's a little bit slower, I will do it that way, because then it's really easy to time the arpeggio going in another direction. You can hit that really confidently. But anyway, once we've got this shape. Now, in this case, normally I would use my ring finger here, but I'm not using my ring finger because of what's coming next. This note with my index is going to go up chromatically. So eventually we're on a B flat major chord, and then a G major arpeggio, and then that's how it ends. So then we got 2 bends coming out of that. And that's of course harmonized with the keys as well. The bend here on 22nd fret, half step to go up to E flat, then a step and a half, and then a half step again to do this little melody. But of course an octave higher in bends. So I know Petrucci was using Ibanez way back in the day. I'm not sure what guitar he's using on this record, but I actually don't hear anything above the 22nd fret. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, if he's got a guitar that has 24 frets when recording this record. But again, I don't hear him using it anywhere. So after we do that, we're just going to do a little bit of the end of verse 4 and 5, like a kind of take on the end of that riff. And then end on a B flat sus2. This leads us into this little clean interlude part. Now here is probably where I've taken the most liberties on the whole record, because it's hard to tell which guitar is which, and if you only play one guitar part, it sounds really boring because there's a lot of space for the other guitar. It sounds like there's an electric guitar with chorus and some effects on it, and a classical guitar, a nylon string guitar. And live, Petrucci really plays something totally different here. So I've kind of cobbled together the two different parts to give us our chord progression. So starting off with C sus2 into C minor. B flat sus2. And G minor. And then a very similar idea, but instead of just sus2, he's adding the seventh to this nice little harmony on a single guitar. If we wanted to analyze those two measures, we could say they're more like C minor 7 because they both have B flats in them. And then this chord we can give a couple different names. The easiest would to say it's E flat with A in the bass. But I could also call it, if we really wanted to call A flat the root, which kind of sounds, that A flat is kind of taken over. This would be A flat major 7 sus2. And then to a B flat, E flat with B flat in the bass might actually be a more accurate term, but then like resolving to B flat. And then the vocals kick in, and it's a very similar part here. I'm also hybrid picking this just to kind of differentiate the high and the low notes, and to me it's a little easier to be accurate and hit the right string. So again, a little bit of my interpretation here, but it sounds very full when you play this with the record. So that little fill in measure 136, 137, 138, that little fill requires you to move your hand completely. And again, I'm including it because if not, I guess maybe I'm just a little too uptight to sit there and wait for things to happen. I still want to be playing something on the guitar. Pretty much the same chord progression there, slight variations here. You'll notice that I have this like traveling C minor chord. So I can do those two, the parallel thirds and the parallel fourths bit. To me, that's like the hook of this guitar part. I'm starting from 144. There's that one variation on the A flat chord that we played. By having just the bar across, it adds the sharp 11, which is fine because if we're in the key of C minor, A flat Lydian is the relative Lydian mode, which has a sharp 4, so everything's still diatonic. And that ends our clean bit. The band comes back in for verse. Are we really on verse 8? Yeah, verse 8. So the song, as you guys I'm sure know, is much less verse, chorus, and other stuff. So I just named every singing part its own new verse. So I'm in the valley here, right? Little C sus2 to C minor. I have been playing the open G. It sounded a little more resonant, but this could certainly be played just with the bar chords. But again, I'm playing with the open G and killing the D string. B flat sus2 and our friend G5. Second ending. A flat sus2, but I think we might have a happy accident here because I can hear some higher notes ringing on the guitar. So I think Petrucci maybe accidentally or maybe on purpose bars his pinky. Gets a couple extra notes in there. Then the next part, the guitar kind of takes its own its own tiny bit of a detour here. So a little bit of that parallel fourths riff there. And then I have 2 written here, but Power Tab won't allow me to write like 2.6, which is where that harmonic is coming from. And that's, of course, I laugh at what I've done. Maybe 2.3. That's it. 2 sus2 chords there. Then we're in the bass solo when you get a real break on guitar. Reinforced D power chord to C sus2, regular A power chord, reinforced D power chord again to B flat sus2, C sus2. Real straightforward, you hang back and let John Myung do his thing. Of course, that leads us to our outro. The outro I've written in 18/8, but that's pretty easy. It's just 6/4 with a triplet feel, 6 groups of 3, right? 6 times 3 is hopefully 18. So, and you're going to do the same rhythm for every single measure. We're just changing the chord. So B flat sus2 to A flat sus2. C power chord, and then you can call this a bunch of things. I mean, you want to call it C7 sus? Yeah, sure, why not? F major with C in the bass, the 5th on the bottom. And C minor 7, what I like to call the jazz cat fingering. If you watch a guitar player play jazz long enough, you will absolutely see them play this version of a minor 7 chord, which is just root, X, and then ring finger can mash and get flat 7, flat 3, and 5. There's our C minor 7. Back to just the C power chord, and again, I'm placing it down here because it sounds a little bit bright relative to some of the other guitar parts. B flat sus2, B flat major. If you caught a little sus4 in there, back to major. And that is the end. So I'll play you the whole outro. And that, my friends, is the Killing Hand. Stay tuned for the next video, Light Fuse and Get Away.